one thing. I've been practicing immigration law for about 15 years, and one thing I can promise you, it's constantly changing. And it will probably continue to constantly change. Now, I can't predict if it's going to change for the better or for the worse. Right now, it seems to be, in at least many of our minds, changing for the worse, meaning that we are getting more focused on enforcement and less focused on the benefits side. Just this past week, though, there was a bill announced that intends to try to balance those two sometimes competing objectives, enforcements versus benefits. And it was a very promising bill that really, I think, addresses our labor market's lack of recognition to some of the things that we need. Most people don't realize that to immigrate to the United States, and typically to immigrate in employment-based immigration, to come here and work, you need a college degree. Is almost a minimum threshold. We have very few. We have what we call an H-2B visa program, which allots 65,000 semi and medium skilled jobs available for the entire United States. 32,500 in the wintertime, 32,500 for the summer. They must be seasonal jobs, and typically they're jobs that require, the most prominent example would be landscapers that are coming to work the season. And so it's, it clearly doesn't recognize the needs that we have. And as I constantly tell people, I understand the position of some folks who want the law enforced. Illegal immigration is bad for everybody. And I'm a firm believer in that, and I'm a firm believer that there are things that we can do to stop illegal immigration and to control it. But one of the things that we definitely need to focus on, I think, as we work and move in that direction, is we have to be humane about it. We have to recognize there were some faults on both sides of the aisle as far as the immigration debate. There have been a lot of things that didn't go quite right. I sometimes think if I called the police up and told them my wife's diamond ring was stolen, and the police come to my house and say, well, where was it? Well, it was sitting out in my car on the dashboard. Was the car locked? No. Whose fault would that have been? I think I probably would have had some pretty unsympathetic police officers saying, well, I think you probably got what you deserve. For a long time, we were very, very lax on our immigration enforcement. And we also had a situation where we had, diamonds sitting on the dashboard. We had job opportunities in a booming economy here, and wages at 10 times what people coming from some of the countries who relocated here could make and earn, 10 times. And so I think there's fault on both sides. I think we have to really, if we're going to address the problem, we really do have to create a situation that recognizes the needs of our labor market and provides employers flexibility to be competitive going into the future. I don't think that SB 590, the bill that was just recently passed, did that. I have some information on it. We're going to talk just briefly about some of the provisions. As many of you may know, Sarah Evans Barker, the federal judge in the Southern District of Indiana, suspended or enjoined two key provisions of SB 590. And we'll talk about what that impact has on overall enforcement, and probably some of the people that you may work with on a daily basis, some of their concerns and what's going through their mind as to what can happen. But we have lots of materials that, if you're ever interested, we try to get employers interested in the immigration debate. We need more employers to step up to the table and tell their elected officials what's bothering them. Not until it's too late. We just witnessed in Georgia. Georgia just passed a similar immigration bill. And finally, the Growers Association stepped up after the bill passed and said, hey, Georgians, by the way, if you like peaches, we're not going to have any because it's a hand-picked crop. We don't have enough hands to pick the crop, so you better get used to corn or peanuts and cotton, I think, is the two things that they said that we can grow a lot of, and we don't need hands. So, you know, unfortunately, I wish that some of the employers participated in the debate earlier and understood some of our immigration processes. Because when we go out, I had a student that came in and did a movie project for one of her classes, and we're trying to get a copy to post on our website. And she did it in a very clever way. She went out kind of like a Jay Leno episode, you know, where he goes out sometimes and asks people on the street common questions, and everybody laughs because they don't know who the President of the United States is, or they don't know some piece of common information. Well, she did the same thing about immigration law. She went out and asked all of these people immigration questions, and with each question, she contrasted the public's answer with my partner and myself sitting down and being interviewed and asked the same questions. And so when people are saying, well, why don't these people do it right? I use the example of my mother-in-law. One Thanksgiving, we had one of our heated debates, as we frequently do, about why don't these people just come to the country, come legally? Why don't they sign the book? I was like, sign the book? What the hell are you talking about? Sign the book. And she said, yeah. I mean, all they had to do was go sign up, right? I'm like, not exactly. And so I was on vacation, and we went to New York, and I did the Ellis Island tour, and sure enough, I found the book. I now have a picture of it. I keep it in my office. I have a little thing below it dedicated to my mother-in-law. That's the book. You know, we used to have a system that literally making your way to the podium and signing the book was enough to gain entry into this country. If you didn't look like you have health problems, you could sign your name, you could gain entry. Well, that's not the way.
But you changed your name, though.
Yeah.
An A or K or something.
Right. Yeah. So, you know, that was then, this is now. People don't understand that when we say, well, why don't these people do it legally? Why don't we send them back to their country and then they can come back legally, right? Anybody think that that's a workable solution?
No.
Well, we got one little problem there, and we call it the 10-year bar. Anybody who's been in the country for more than a year, and the moment that their feet touch foreign soil, they're barred for 10 years from coming back. Any immigration benefit, 10 years, off the board. Very few waivers available for that provision. So for many people that now have employers that want to help them, or have somebody that wants to help them and that want to contribute, can't. And our laws aren't allowing for that. And so, but the public out there seems to think that they can. That they can do it legally, and it's as easy as signing a book. And it's not. And so the more that we get people to learn about our immigration system, you know, attorneys constantly are going out there, we're talking about how broken it is. And Mike Delf's response, the only thing that's broken is the illegal people. You know, well, it's more than that, Mike. If you had passed the bar exam, I could talk to you.
He's had 2 chances so far.
He didn't pass it again.
I could talk to you more about the intricacies of some of the things that we need to fix. Some of the things that just, if the American public knew about, they would scratch their heads and say, that's just not fair. That's just not the American way. I think that one of the biggest areas that we're seeing that debate be played out is with the DREAM Act. You know, I do find it hard to believe that we can punish somebody that was carried in their mother's arms here, and we can treat them the same way that the mother is going to be treated for bringing the child here. To me, I was once watching CNN, and there were a bunch of parents that were complaining because their little league passed the rule that if the parents acted inappropriately while watching the game, the kids weren't going to be able to play anymore. Well, we as Americans just thought that that was unconscionable. How could we punish the kids for the acts of the parents? That's what everybody was complaining about. Well, right now, today, we're doing that exact thing to foreign kids who were brought here by their parents. I don't know, I tried maybe a couple times when I was growing up to tell my father how things should go. It didn't actually work so well. You know, and growing up, my father, 40-year member of International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, Local 369. And although he had the foresight to tell me that you're going to go off to college, he also had the foresight to tell me that every summer I was going to work in the apprenticeship program when I came home. And so I did that because he said, if this college thing doesn't work out, you better have something that you can do. So, you know, and I thank him for that. But that's one of the things I think we, in this immigration debate, need to get more information, learn more about it. And let's look at the bill that was passed. SB 590 was proposed because, as many states in this country are doing, they feel that the federal government has failed us, that our immigration system is not working, and that they need to do something to control the number of people that are here illegally. So state after state is trying to pass bills that make it more difficult for somebody to be in their state illegally. Arizona was the first, followed by now 26 other states. Utah and I think Illinois are the only states I think that have really resisted and pushed back. Utah has gone so far as to propose a favorable immigration bill where they're offering a work permit.
Right.
So, but most states have gone the other route, including Indiana, trying to pass these bills. One thing that Sarah Evans Barker noted in her opinion, she noted this trend, but she also noted that it's very difficult to do and do constitutionally. So one of the provisions was this reasonable suspicion that somebody is in the country illegally, that could be a reason to stop somebody and investigate them for their immigration status. Well, would a police officer stop me or my friend Leo here more likely under that standard? If he's driving to Lowe's on Sunday to fix the, you know, to put his new gas grill in that he got for Father's Day, just like I did, if we're both driving to Lowe's, who would be more likely to be stopped? My friend Juan Rodriguez, who was visiting Arizona shortly after the Arizona bill passed, was stopped driving to the Napa Auto Parts store. Officer gave him no reason, but wanted to see his documents. Well, Juan has been a United States citizen now for years. His entire family has legally immigrated, taking more than 20 years for that to happen, but they have done it. So, was it fair that Juan had to take the time out of his day to be questioned by a police officer? Was it fair that he had to have his passport or some documentation on him to prove that he was legally in the country?
And did he have it? I mean,
he did.
Did you advise him to do that because he was going to Arizona?
I did, but Juan's on top of things.
But not everybody is.
But, you know, was it fair that he would have to do that? And that was the problem with the bill. Reasonable suspicion based upon what? Mike Delft said, well, if you talk with an accent, if you speak a foreign language. Well, my mother-in-law, or yeah, well, not my mother-in-law, it would be my brother's wife's mother, who's from Germany. She's been a citizen for 30 years.
Still has an accent.
She speaks funny. Does she now have to, you know, be subjected to that? So that was one of the provisions that the judge enjoined, thankfully. And even the state, in advocating for its own bill, said, well, yeah, we concede that it would be pretty hard to enforce this constitutionally. But they seem to fall back on the argument a little bit of constitutional infringement is okay in certain situations. Well, the judge very aptly explained to them, I'm not sure where you went to law school, but that's not okay. And so whatever we do, and whatever position that we take on this immigration debate, we still have to abide by certain fundamental principles that we hold as a nation. And so reasonable suspicion got thrown out and got enjoined. The other thing that got enjoined was the idea that somebody could not use the matricula as a form of identification. It violated any number of treaties that we have signed with other countries, including our ability to use identification in their country if a United States citizen is driving abroad or traveling abroad, to be able to use our identification and be accepted in those countries. So it violated a lot of international treaties, and as a result, it too was enjoined. The state had no business getting in and trying to do something that was going to have such a profound impact on foreign policy. What are we left with in the bill? One controversial provision we're left with is if you are employing somebody who is found to be undocumented, you can lose your state deduction for that employee's costs and expenses. So as a business owner, Carlos works for me. I'm allowed to expense the wages that I pay to him, meaning that I'm not going to have to claim that in my taxable income. Now, if Carlos is found to be undocumented, those wages come back in on my Indiana return, and I am now going to supposedly have to include that in my gross or in my taxable income and be taxed on the amount. Now, I've looked through the bill. I've called the Department of Revenue. I don't know how they're going to figure out whether I got somebody working for me that's undocumented. And there are no monies allocated for an enforcement mechanism for this, so I'm really not sure, you know, what and how that provision of the law is going to play out. And so I'm researching with tax attorneys. I just called one on the way here today, and he was like, "Those are all really good questions. We have no idea." So I think it's very uncertain there. But for somebody that has a large number of potentially undocumented people working for them, that could be a risk that we need to figure out, because that could bring a lot of dollars back into the, you know, subject to taxation. You lose certain other credits. You know, half of the bill is addressed on all of these tax issues that, again, as an immigration attorney, I'm at a little disadvantage as well because, you know, I slept through tax class. Or I didn't. Professor Jagan would never allow that, but
Yeah, he would not.
he would never have allowed that. Anybody that's gone to law school knows that you can never sleep through a Jagan tax class. But after I got through it, I said that's enough of the Internal Revenue Code. So I'm having to dig that back out and take a look at it and figure out some of those provisions. Some of the other provisions that are still left in the bill that's controversial is the harboring provision. If I'm driving in my vehicle and I have one and some of my other friends in the vehicle and they're found to be undocumented and we were driving to Lowe's because they were working at my house, I could be charged with transporting for financial gain. And that's an 8 misdemeanor in the state of Indiana.
Wow.
So, again, I think we have to go back to the Sarah Evans Barker decision. What's going to lead to the police to stop my vehicle? They still have to have probable cause, and there still has to be something that leads them to do that other than they cannot rely upon the reasonable suspicion because here's this Anglo person with 5 people in the car that don't look Anglo.
I thought they fixed that. You don't have your seatbelt on.
Well, they can say, you know, they can't say, well, you were texting or, you know, something else was going on. They still have to have probable cause for the search. Now, the problem is when they come up to the vehicle, do they have a right to ask those other 5 people in the vehicle about their immigration status?
According to the bill,
Right now.
you're saying they do.
They don't.
They don't.
They don't. Because in Indiana, we have an identification statute. We're one of 4 states in the country that have a statute that says you have a duty to identify yourself to police. But we also have the 5th Amendment that protects you from self-incrimination. So if identification is going to incriminate you, you have 2 conflicting principles. But even with the identification statute that we have in Indiana, it only says I have to give my name, my address, and my date of birth. Now, do local police officers have access to any tools that, with those 3 pieces of information, they're going to be able to determine whether somebody's in this country legally? No.
Well, but they ask you for the driver's license.
I'm not driving the vehicle. I don't even have to have a driver's license.
That's what they
Now
ask.
well, they can ask for anything. They still have free speech protections. Are we required by law to give that to them? And the answer is no. And I chair the Citizens Police Complaint Board here in Marion County. As a result of that responsibility, I do know a little bit about what the rules of the police department are. And I got in an argument because we got stopped in Carmel. And we were driving my wife's new car. And so we had a temporary plate, and the officer said he stopped us because he couldn't see the plate visibly. Well, it was in the back window. But he said that it needed to be on the outside of the car. I said, well, it's a paper plate. That's not going to last very long. So we, did this. I wasn't driving. And I know that when you stop somebody and you have a temporary plate, it's going to take a lot longer to verify because you have to call the dealer. Well, this was after hours. You have to verify that the car belongs to this person, all this. It's going to take a lot longer. So I chose to, because I was late and we were going to Carmel to have dinner on the way to the airport because I had a flight to catch. And so I chose, while he's back there for 20 minutes, to just get out of the car and go into the restaurant and at least get a table and get started. Well, the police officer approached me and told me that I couldn't do that. I said, well, why? He said, well, officer safety. And I said, well, I understand that. I'm not a party to this particular stop. I'm a passenger in the vehicle. And we've been here for 20 minutes now. I'm going to go into the restaurant. And he said, and I said, I'll give you my identification if you need it, or my name. I wasn't being investigated for anything. And so we got in this argument that, well, he can make me get back in the car. And I said, well, you could. Because, he can do a lot of things. Whether those are going to be upheld as being something within his purview of authority later, that's a different question. The issue came down to what did I have to be there and how long did I have to be there? And so finally the officer agreed after I pointed out that I wasn't a party to the stop and everything like that. Yeah, as long as I wasn't going to come back to the vehicle, I had the right to leave. I had the right to walk away and leave. And there's several YouTube videos that have been put out there by the ACLU and some other organizations that kind of play this out as to what somebody's rights are. So yeah, police officers come up and they ask for a lot of things out of custom. Is there a legal requirement that I have to provide a driver's license if I'm not driving the vehicle? Absolutely not. Name, address, date of birth. Do I have to answer questions about my legal status in this country? Absolutely not. I have a right against self-incrimination. Do I have to provide a social security number to a police officer? Absolutely not. So,
does he have a right to arrest you and take you in until all that's determined?
He can try.
I mean, does he have?
Well, he has a right to arrest you. Now, is that arrest going to be upheld as being lawful later? Did he have probable cause to believe that a crime has committed that's within his authority to arrest you for? If it's only the immigration violation, if he has nothing else and he's just saying that I'm taking you in because I believe that you're illegally in this country and I want to notify immigration, the answer is no. If he believed that you had a warrant outstanding and confirmed that warrant, the answer is yes. He had the right to take you into custody.
Sure.
If he believes that you're suspected of a crime, that you're the guy that just robbed the 7-Eleven on the corner, of course. But for the immigration violation alone, and I think we're going to see a lot of tension because a lot of unclear messages have been sent out by the passage of this bill. And so we're going to see a lot of tension between the authority that the police have and what the individual has. And I think we're going to see those boundaries be tested. And the best place to do those are going to be the courts, the complaint boards, the merit board, and places like that. I just had a client come back to this country with a valid green card. I got it for him. I didn't make it.
Somebody on Washington Street did.
Nobody on Washington Street made this green card.
Somewhere else.
The police officer that stopped her decided that it was not valid. Do you know how much it costs to replace a green card?
Yep. Yes.
How much?
$690, something like that.
$390.
Or $390, yeah.
You're thinking of the naturalization
Oh,
certificate.
yes.
But $390, $390 taken. On what basis? Did they call immigration and verify the card? No. They just said it was illegal. Same thing happened in Seymour to one of my clients. Except he's being taken to the Brownstown jail. And he starts laughing while he's in the back of the police car. And the police officer says, "What are you laughing about?" And he said, "I'm laughing about how much fun my attorney's going to have with you when you find out that that green card's real." You know what he did? He pulled the car over, got the guy out, uncuffed him, and handed his card back to him. Didn't say a word, walked back, got in the police car, and drove off. So we're going to see things like that. And that may happen to people that you know that work at companies that you know, or maybe your neighbor. And again, too often we face people that are afraid to come forward and report these things. One of the things that when I went on the Citizens Police Complaint Board, the city county councilor asked me, one of the things that they were trying to promote is get the word out that there are opportunities for everybody to use the complaint board process. The complaint board process shouldn't be shut off to people. A Hispanic gentleman should be able to come in and file a complaint just as easily as myself. And so fear sometimes stops people from doing this, fear and uncertainty about how the process works, about retribution. But this is how these things are going to work themselves out and how we're all going to be held accountable for making sure that whatever we do to fix this problem, and I think we can all agree we have a problem, we do it in a fair, humane, and ethical way. So, other provisions of SB 590 besides the harboring and how they're going to stop somebody if you're transporting more people than you're supposed to, I have no idea. It still, I think, is a very controversial provision of the bill. Let's see what else we have here.
Can you speak about the e-file?
E-Verify, another one. E-Verify is a procedure, a government system that's been put in place to verify workers. It's not a requirement of the bill unless you're a contractor with a state entity or a governmental entity. So if I'm a private employer and I don't do business with the state, do I have to use E-Verify? No. A lot of employers are starting to try to do it. I mean, I will tell you that other than some of the problems in the E-Verify system, which I think there are some proposals coming down that are going to work some of those issues out. Will E-Verify end illegal immigration? Yes. I think it will.
Really?
Jobs are the magnet that brought people here. You take away jobs, you take away the ability to work in the United States, you can't be here. I recently had a group about a year and a half, 2 years ago come through. They were doing tours around the United States from the Department of State. I got a call from the governor's office. They wanted to come and learn something about this US immigration system. So I said, all right, you can bring them by. I don't know what I'm going to tell them, but so this is a group from Germany. And their question to me is, tell us about illegal immigration. I was like, you don't have it? And they're like, no, not really. And I said, well, why? And they said, well, we have a national ID system. And I said, what do you mean you have a national ID system? She said, well, you can't even get a hotel room for the night in Germany without proving that you're in legal status.
Right.
Oh, wow.
Right.
And we think nothing of making you produce your national ID for whatever you do,
Right.
whatever type business you're transacting, whether it's getting a hotel room, whether it's signing a lease for an apartment, whether it's doing anything. And because of that, it makes it very difficult to be in Germany illegally. And And I contrasted that. I remembered that I had this gentleman in my conference room. He was from Africa. Great, funny guy. He said, yeah, I tried doing what I do here in Europe. Do you know I only lasted 3 weeks before I was deported? He's like, I got a visa to Canada. I walked across the mountains, and I've been in the United States for the last 13 years. I've owned businesses, I've owned homes, I've done everything that anybody else would do, and I've never had any legal documents. Well, that's the thing that's changing. We are making it harder for somebody without legal documents to do things that they used to be able to do. That's the thing that's going to cause it to be painful. And the number one thing that's going to cause the pain to become unbearable is when they can't get a job. When they can't get a job using fake documents, they're going to be forced into tough decisions. And as companies implement E-Verify, we just had a recent, on the north side up by me, a restaurant that was purchased by another larger restaurant chain. And the manager at that restaurant told me, yeah, our new acquirer made us implement the E-Verify system, and we lost 85% of our workers. Wow. Now, I've been long told by people that own certain franchises that if they have to run this, go back to running the restaurant with Carmel High School kids, that they'll probably be shutting down, selling, and moving to Florida sooner than they planned.
Sure. Oh, yeah.
Again, it's our failure to recognize some of the needs of our labor market. I got a gentleman back there, I couldn't cheer more when he said that we have a labor shortage in the trades. Our immigration system has to recognize that. Our immigration system has to be able to provide, just as you have to have a hammer or a pair of side cutters out in the job, you got to have the tools to do the trades. Just like the Florida Growers Association, hands have to pick the peaches. Yeah, they're working on a robot arm to pick peaches off of a tree, but right now we're not there. So we still need to have immigration laws that recognize our systems. E-Verify, when it's fully implemented and up to speed, it is going to be a powerful tool. And it is going to impact more businesses that use it, and it's going to impact the undocumented community, I think, like never before. It's the train that's coming down the tracks that is going to have the biggest impact.
But isn't it full of holes right now?
There are some problems with it. One is it can be faked. If I steal somebody's identity, lock, stock, and barrel, I'm going to check out an E-Verify system. So that's a problem. They're working on trying to get photographs and other things merged in with the database to make it more accurate. But right now it can be faked. My wife, after we got married, didn't change her name on her Social Security card. She would have failed the E-Verify check. Last time I checked, I think she was born in Wisconsin, so I'm pretty sure she's American.
So it does hook up a name with a number.
It does. And so, you know, there are problems with that, and I don't think, you know, anybody that's called the federal government and you have a problem and you can't get hired because your number is not matching, that's like phone system hell. You know, trying to get a person that's going to fix your problem. And if we're going to have a system like that, we have to have protections in place to identify those problems and make sure they get fixed fast, because you don't want a U.S. citizen worker who is legally able to work waiting weeks for the government to update its database and to recognize its error that may have caused the no match. There is a proposal on the table from the Obama administration that they're looking at doing that. They're going to outsource this idea of verification to a call center that's similar to a credit bureau check, so that we get a secured Social Security number or a verified Social Security number in order to be able to work. But again, I think for the most part, we're going to continue moving in this direction, and it is going to make the United States more inhospitable to being here illegally, and I think that in the end, it's going to be painful getting to that point, particularly since we left the door open and allowed 10, maybe 20 million people to come on in. It is going to be painful getting to that point, not only for the people impacted by our laws, and that's where I think we need to focus some of our attention. But for all of us, wages are going to go up, shortages of labor are going to be felt, prices are going to go up, there's going to be an enormous economic impact. You know, undocumented immigrants don't just simply take. I've examined probably more of those family situations and cases than anybody in the room, and they're all not just taking, I can tell you that. And many of them are, you know, we say the number's 10 million on the low side. Well, I know many of them are working 2 jobs. So it's going to have an enormous impact on our labor markets, and it is going to take time for us to adjust to those things. Questions? So if you use E-Verify and then you're found to have workers that are undocumented, you're still not going to lose your tax advantages to employing those workers. So it acts as a safe harbor, and that's supposedly the incentive to get more employers to adopt E-Verify.
But who's going to be the enforcer of E-Verify on those companies? When you do the E-Verify, is it up to the, I mean, who's going to be the enforcer of that?
Not addressed in the bill. You're asking questions that we haven't even begun to think about. We don't have legal staff at the Attorney General's office that have been dedicated to this role. We don't have people that have been trained at the Indiana Department of Revenue that's been dedicated to this role. And that was one of the things that Judge Sarah Evans Barker pointed out in her opinion. If we're arresting these people on reasonable suspicion of being undocumented, what are we going to do with them? You take them to the local jail and you put them in jail, now what? Does the state of Indiana have the authority to deport anybody?
No.
No. Last time I checked, I don't even think we're on the border anywhere. Do we have transportation resources to drive people to the border?
No.
What are you going to do with them? Have you called up the federal government and said, do they have a plan for taking them?
Nope.
How long are they going to sit in our jails while they wait for that? Is that constitutional? Sounds like an internment camp to me. I thought we learned some lessons from the past, and that's what the opinion addressed. You didn't plan this out very well, state of Indiana. You didn't think about what was going to happen next. You didn't think about what was going to happen at all. And as a result, we're going to enjoin this bill. And again, I understand. I can probably make the argument for the other side of the immigration debate better than they can. And I could probably tell them a thing or two about fixing it. If we really want to address the problem, attack the problem, and do it within the realms of constitutional requirements, I could probably come up with something for them. But whatever we do, we got to follow our own principles. We got to follow the principles, and this bill did not do that. It didn't even think about those principles. It said, those principles can wait. We got this big problem. Let's just do it any way we can. And that's not who we are as a people. And again, was there anything in the bill? We always talk about how complex immigration law is, second only to the tax code and intellectual property law. Was there any money allocated to training anybody?
Nope. No.
No. None. We didn't tell them what we're going to do with them. We didn't train anybody how to identify. Are we providing our officers, our men in blue out there that have to do this with the training and the resources to know what's permitted, what's not permitted? Do they have systems that they can call and verify? Do they have access to the federal system in Vermont to verify somebody was a US citizen? This year alone, by the way, besides the guy in Puerto Rico, I've escorted 2 people out of detention centers who had deportation orders and immigration was about to deport them, who were US citizens and didn't know. One right out here at Plainfield Correctional Facility. Didn't know he was a US citizen and was about to be deported. Brought that to the attention of the ICE office here, and they go, well, I'll be. Who would have known?
Why didn't you know?
Huh?
Why didn't you know?
Well, we adopted a law back in 2000, and this goes to the complexity of our immigration laws. We adopted a law back in 2000 called the Child Citizenship Act. that automatically pass citizenship on to certain children if their parents became a citizen. And so this guy didn't know about that law. Like half the laws that I talk to people about sometimes, they're like, really? Didn't know about that law, and so he had become a citizen when his father naturalized because he met the requirements. And that was automatic. And so when he got arrested, all he had was his green card and his Mexican passport. So he thought he was still a citizen of Mexico. And the crime that he had committed, stealing a puppy for his girlfriend, was a deportable offense, lifetime bar, aggravated felony. So he
So
thought
now
he
he's
was
in American jail for stealing a puppy?
yes.
Oh.
Yeah. So he thought he was going to he thought he was going to be deported, and again we showed that he wasn't. Now I did another case out of Big Springs, Texas, same thing, but the guy was transporting cocaine, a large amount. My wife didn't cheer me on for that one.
No.
She was like, oh yeah, but the principle of the matter, he's still a citizen. He's still a citizen, and he doesn't deserve to be deported to a country that he's never lived in. Just because, yes, he did a crime, and he did the time for the crime. Should that have involved deportation? Our law says no. He's a citizen. And I think we have to honor that. And I think it was my duty to point that out to the Bureau of Prisons. And a lot of people think that I'm doing evil work. Somehow I justify that as God's work. But you know, I think we have to uphold the principles and the laws that we have on the books. So that's what he was able to walk out. Any other questions?
So how do we help Americans understand the convoluted process that is our immigration system? What do we do? I mean, how do we?
I have some
get
handouts.
out?
I come to churches. I'm at a church almost every Sunday, talking about these issues. We give free community talks. You got a group of people that want to learn more and want to learn some of the things when we talk about immigration reform that want to be fixed. You can invite us out. We're welcome to come out and talk, share with you.